Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. It's Tuesday. It is December 20th. This will be our chart lesson for the day. This is going to be our final chart lesson for the year. I'm going to take off the rest of the week. Even though it was a little slow and light volume today, we had a nice trend down, up, and then down. So we had some nice trades today. Not a lot of them, but it was a lot easier to read today, in my opinion. Hopefully, I know at least one person sent me an email. I think I had one email today, and they had this channel on here. They pretty much had, they definitely had the trend line right. I believe they had the channel wrong because they had it down here, and I can understand why they had it down there. But what I believe it's right here, and that this was an overshoot. We had overshot it twice, and you can see it skip that line right there. You'll see that a lot when you got your trend line in the right place. And then once we got the overshoot here, we actually got an overshoot here. We moved to a new low, and then we reversed and we started going higher. And this person actually, I'm pretty sure this is where they went long here. This is after 2 o'clock, so I don't recommend going long here anyway. Or actually, they went short here and they couldn't figure out why it failed. But even if they had this trend channel line down here, they should have recognized that what happens when you come off the low side. You head back to the upper side, to the upper trend line. And so going short right here, even though that, yeah, that's definitely a second entry short, this market's reversing and all that is a short trap. And look at that trend line working up right there. You're going short right into that trend line. Never a good idea. Wait on the break in the new high, or at least an attempt at a new high. Here's a good example of one moving up. You get the close outside. At least it attempted to go up, and it couldn't because the trend line's there. It confirms it, so then you can go short. So that's the mistake they made here. This is just a reversal pattern. And if this wasn't after 2 o'clock, I still don't know if I'd go long right there, simply because it's right back into that trend line. We do have a break and a new low, but you never know. So, but all the same, I think the trend line is right here, working off this right down through here. You had an overshoot, and then you got your, and look how it actually, it's not as noticeable there, but there's still a little gap between the open and the close there. We did trade up, end up trading up there, but it closes right inside that trend line, and then it closes right on top of that trend line. Notice those closes. That trend line was fairly easy to find. It was a little bit more difficult to find the low side, um, so you might need the midline to help you find it. So remember that. But that's the way I saw it, and I believe that to be correct. But let's talk about the trades, and then we're going to wrap it up. And like I said, this is it for the year. I'm done. I'm not going to trade anymore this year. Um, it's just not worth it to me to sit around in this stuff and wait on these few trades all day. So I got a lot of stuff, Christmas shopping to do, and this is generally, I generally take these last couple of weeks off every year, uh, just as a chance to get away. The market's usually quiet. Most of Wall Street's winding down, not so many people trading, squaring up their books, things like that. So doesn't mean that we won't have some good movement if you want to trade. If you just want to get experience, come on here and sim trade each day, whatever. But it'll get slower and slower as we get closer to the holiday, to Christmas. So, but anyway, let's talk about the trades and we'll wrap it up. We'll be done for the year. So when I came in, we had this trend working up and we were working back down. You had to be patient. You don't want to go short in this with this big move up, so you're just waiting on a long. And you might have been tempted to go long right here. It's a second entry long. Pull back. Actually, it's counting off the high. It's not a second entry. It's a high or low, though, and it does close inside. But it's not a perfect bar. It's a fairly bullish bar, so, you might consider going long there, and it would have worked. It pulled back. But generally, I usually wait on the failed second entry short, especially if it's not a perfect setup. If it's a perfect setup, you go long right there, no doubt about it. And you could have gone long there anyway. It still would have worked, but when it comes back and tests that again and turns back up, go long right there. If you're already in, I'd add on right there. And right off the bat, you got at least one or two winners there. You got to close outside here, a couple of them. So now that you got a new high, I don't recommend going long anymore. And you might have even considered, this is one of those where if you really understand the price action and you're reading it well, I'm willing to give that green. But picking tops is never a good thing. More people lose money trying to pick tops and bottoms than anything else. And so, unless you're really good, forget these trades. Because every once in a while, somebody will send me an email and say, "Isn't that counter trend trading?" Yes, it is, and that's why it's green. But if you really understand price action and you know you realize what's going on here, you had your break, your new high, you've been away from the EMA since 8:30, and it's really 9 o'clock almost. We're probably going to come back at least to the EMA. There's plenty of room there, and you may get a reversal. And guess what? It shoots right through the EMA, pulls back, gives you a first entry, goes lower. It doesn't break higher here, so that was a little bit of concern. But when you get that big a bearish bar, that's like a bearish reversal, and you got a new low. So that's a first entry, second entry. I like that, especially when you're looking for, you got a little trend line working down here, and you got an overshoot, so a break. You're going to probably make a new low here, and you really got enough room regardless. So I like that one. And then, of course, it reverses. You get your new low, and it reverses. It's tempting to go long right there, but we're working down, and it could be that you got another trend right there. So it's a little bit risky going long right there, but you could probably argue for it. It's probably could be green. I'm not going to mark it, but you could argue for it because we do have a break of this little trend here and a new low. But I'm guessing, you got to be guessing there's probably a bigger pattern. We could go higher again because we are trading up, and we're trading up into the regular trading hours too, and that generally, even if you get a correction here, you'll get a flatter trend and maybe go higher again. But that doesn't happen. We just reverse and we bounce. Now you got a little trend working up here. You get a close outside. You try to go higher, and if you draw that trend line off those first two swings, it tests it again. You get a bearish bar, and again there's a low there. So a first entry, second entry. So it's a second entry counting off the lows, and it's a confirmation of that trend line. Fairly bearish bar. I like going short right there. And off we go. And then you get a little close outside, move to a new low, and reverses again. If this would have been a bullish bar, you might have considered going long here. Even though this is working down, notice how we're swinging back and forth above and below the EMA. You can treat that like a range day, so you can trade the lower sides if you get a good setup. You still want to follow the rules of a trend channel though, and so you don't want to be going short down here, and you don't want to be getting long up here. That's the only problem. You might get long down here and short up here and trade it both ways, but you got to know what you're doing. So I hope that's clear. But anyway, we're working up. You pull back. You get a higher low here. You got a little channel working up. Notice you got an overshoot, and so you get a close outside. Generally, when you get an overshoot, it's not long till you're going to have a close outside. You move to a new high. We do break outside the trend line here. And actually, you could consider, you could consider going short there. That's a big bearish bar. But you're almost always better off to wait on a lower high. And notice it closes inside that trend line, turns immediately, and gives you a nice bearish bar. You might consider that one because you do have a close outside and two legs up to a new high. But then you get your reversal. Notice how we push on through. You pull back, you get your failed second entry long. Go short right there. It's not a perfect signal bar, but it doesn't matter on a trap when you know you're probably headed down. And it goes right where you think it does. It overshoots it again. You can see that little gap in there between. Notice how those two bars don't overlap. When you see that where you got a trend line, that's generally a good sign your trend line. For some reason, it tends to gap over that. And somebody will ask me, where's the gap? I don't see a gap. But what I'm talking about is those bars do not overlap. Notice how almost every bar overlaps the previous bar some degree by at least a tick or so. Right here, this one closed on its low, opened on its high, but it backed up and it didn't. So they overlap. This one didn't back up. It just kept going. There's a little gap right there between there. Those two bars do not overlap. So that's what I'm talking about there. But notice it bounces. You get a higher low here. Um, Everything's still below the EMA, and you really don't have a good close outside this bar till right here. So I wouldn't go short yet. I'd wait and see if you get a reversal, which you get it here, and and then it's too late. It's in the 2 o'clock hour. You might consider this one if you're still trading. If you've got enough room to get out before here, if you can get in with a limit order, let it break higher, put a limit order. But it's real close there, and you got to be careful. Even though we've got a break and a new low already, and we do have a couple overshoots, so we're probably going to go higher here. But you don't want to risk it. It may back up first and then go higher. So I don't think you want to risk that. But if it's within the 2 o'clock hour, I'd probably say, yeah, I might take that trade right there. So that's what I saw today. It's fairly easy to read this today. Not difficult. Just real slow and real methodical, and you just kind of had to sit here and be patient, that kind of thing. So, but a good trading day, even though the volume's low. The trades were there. There's 3 or 4 or 5 of them here. But again, this is going to be it for the year. I'm going to wrap it up. I hope everybody has a great holiday and a great new year. We'll look forward to coming back and starting this all over after the first of the year. Just look at the calendar here. Most likely I'll be back on January 2nd. I may need a day off to get over the vacation. Um, Sometimes it's hard to get right back in the saddle on the first day back at work. So, but I'll most likely be back on this Monday. At the very latest, it'll be the 3rd. So it depends on whether we go anywhere during the holiday or not. But at this point, we're not planning on going anywhere. So I'll probably be ready to get out of the house and back to work by the second. So we'll see. But anyway, again, Happy New Year to everybody. Merry Christmas to you, and we will see you next year.